Saul Over Soon.
You're Slippin' Jimmy. Slippin' Jimmy with a law degree is like a chimp with a machine gun.
Blow my magic flute.
Money is not beside the point. Money is the point.
That's what a Chicago sunroof is. Now you know.
Saul Over Soon.
It's a real thing. I didn't make it up.
Nobody wants to leave home.
Welcome to Saul Over Soon, a Better Call Saul podcast. I'm Jamie G. Esquire the Fifth, and no, I will not be your public defendant. I'm here with my co-host, Magnum Mills, and we're going to cover the sixth and final season of Better Call Saul.
Like the man said, I'm Magnum Mills. Thank you for checking us out. If you're not already subscribed, find us on your favorite podcast platform at Saul Over Soon. Find us on YouTube by searching for Saul Over Soon or at JoeBlowFootballShow.com. And we're on social media at Saul Over Soon. And on this episode, we're going to break down the first episode of season 6. And just for the record, we will be spoiling all episodes of Better Call Saul, all episodes of Breaking Bad. In this case, episode 1 and episode 2 of season 6 did come out on the same night. We will not be spoiling any of the events from episode 2. So that's off limits. We will be spoiling all events up through episode 1, but we will only be talking about episode 2 on the next episode when we discuss that.
Mills, tell them about this episode of Better Call Saul.
Episode 1 of season 6, titled Wine and Roses, originally aired April 18th, 2022. It was directed by Michael Morris. He had previously directed 3 episodes of Saul, with the most recent being Wexler v. Goodman in season 5. This was written by show co-creator and showrunner Peter Gould. This is the 10th written by credit he has on Saul. His most recent written by credit was Something Unforgivable, the season 5 finale. And the short plot synopsis for this is Nacho runs for his life. Jimmy and Kim hatch a plan. Mike questions his allegiances.
Thank you for setting the table so finely for us, Magnum Mills. Now it's time, baby. Let's briefly recap this episode and break down the various plot lines and character developments.
Let's do this thing. And very surprisingly, the episode starts out with a bunch of colors, no Gene anywhere in sight, and we're back in the Breaking Bad timeline, and we're seeing, the feds, people hired by the feds to empty out Saul Goodman's very luxurious house. I mean, dude's got a gold toilet, everything, closet to die for, or so I've been told. A bunch of Easter eggs in the scene. We'll touch on those a little bit later on. But the most notable thing here, which we focus on at the very end, is the cap from that bottle of Zafiro Ajeño Tequila.
Man, oh man. And after the credits, Magnum Mills, we catch up with Nacho towards the end of events that we see in the season 5 finale. Picks right back up. Nacho lets the assassins in, and then he takes off. He hears gunfire as he runs through the wilderness and is forced to hide at daybreak. He eventually gets a call from Tyrus, who tells him that everything is good and he is to travel north and keep a low profile.
Then we go back to Lalo, who appears to be a bit injured as he's walking with a limp. He goes to the house of the husband and wife caretakers of the property that he had there that just got assaulted. He makes a very nice, pleasant conversation before he ends up killing them both, and he uses the husband's body to substitute for his own corpse.
We're back in the city where Bugs Bunny always took the wrong turn, and Saul is lying awake, seemingly troubled by the final conversation he had with Kim in the season 5 finale. Kim informs him that she's taken on 20 public defender cases. They return to the apartment and get ready for their day. Saul gives Kim some money, and Kim takes a bullet-riddled world's second best lawyer mug with her. As they're about to leave in a taxi, Kim throws the mug in the garbage.
Back at Lalo's compound, we see the cousins show up as the federales are there kind of doing what they are with the scene. They view the supposed corpse of Lalo, cover it up, and they leave a Santa Muerte card vowing revenge.
We go back to the chicken farm and we see the chicken man. That's right, Gus Fring, who gets a call from Bolsa. Bolsa says that Lalo is dead, but Fring doesn't seem to be convinced. The cartel is already determined that Nacho is responsible, and they have put a bounty on his head. The Salamancas want to capture him alive so they can extract as much information from him as possible. Doesn't sound like a fun time, Magnum Mills. Mike doesn't like this, man, and he offers to go down to Mexico to retrieve Nacho. Gus declines his offer. Mike says that Nacho has done well given the circumstances and that he deserves Gus's respect. Gus says that he has it. Magnum Mills, we're back at the courthouse, and the assistant district attorney is all up in Saul's business. They want to know the whereabouts of his clients, Jorge de Guzman. Saul attempts to brush them off, but in doing so, he accidentally calls Jorge Lalo. The ADA catches his slip and grows even more suspicious. Saul retreats to an empty courtroom to ponder the mistake he just made.
Ooh, just one little word, but maybe that was a big one. And then we see Saul meet Kim in a diner where they talk about their respective days. Saul said that Kim day sounds like the day from hell, but Kim says that it was one of the best days of her life. She also gives him some ideas for the Saul Goodman persona, such as getting a flashier car and more impressive outfits. After that, she starts to talk about how they're going to get Hammer and Howard Hamlin, and Saul still seems a bit uneasy about the whole situation. It will be extremely difficult, but if they succeed, Saul will get his sandpiper money. The first step will involve Cliff Maine. We zoom out of the scene without hearing the details of the plan.
We're then back in Mexico. We see Nacho hiding in a drain pipe to dodge the federales before arriving at the Motel Acotillo, where the manager gives him a room key. Inside the room, Nacho finds an envelope with a gun, bullets, and cash. He calls Tyrus, who tells him that it'll be picked up by a farm truck in a few days. After that, he calls Mike, but Mike declines to answer his call.
You never want Mike to decline your call. And we go to a country club parking lot where we're seeing Saul and Kim observing Hamlin and Cliff Maine heading out to play some golf. Saul heads inside while Kim keeps an eye on him. When Saul arrives inside for his previously scheduled tour of the club, he runs into Kevin Wachtel. Kevin gives Saul the proverbial business, as obviously they had a big falling out previously, and Saul accuses him and the club of anti-Semitic behavior. He vows that he would never join a club like this, but asks if he can use the restroom before he leaves. He is directed to the men's locker room, where he proceeds to find the locker number of Howard Hamlin. At that point, he gets a text from Kim saying that the guys are on their way back. Jimmy managed to sneak something into Hamlin's locker before disguising himself by getting butt-ass naked and covering his head with a towel. When we see what Jimmy pulls, we then see what Jimmy put in Hamlin's locker, a small baggie with a white powdery substance. Cliff Maine sees it too. Howard swears that it's not his, maybe one of the workers put it there. Saul rejoins Kim in the car, and she wonders if they were too subtle, but Saul says that the plan was perfect.
As we get towards the end of this episode, it is time to check back in with Lalo. We see that he's dropped off by a pickup truck and he's paying money to smugglers to gain passage in a hidden compartment of a hay truck in order to cross the border. Before entering the truck, Lalo places a call to Hector. He tells Hector that he is still alive and that Fring was behind the attack on his compound. He says that he's headed back north to seek revenge. But Hector has another idea. Using his bell to communicate, Hector tells Lalo that he needs proof. While he's initially unsure where he can find such proof, something eventually clicks, and Lalo tells Hector that he knows where to find proof. He returns to the smugglers, asking for his money back. They obviously decline, and, well, Lalo kills them both. He takes the smuggler's pickup truck, and he heads back to Mexico.
That's the episode. Let's start here with the very beginning, the cold open. And before we talk about how it was a little bit of a surprising with cold open, just here's a few Easter eggs we get in the scene. Because we get the photo of a cowboy on a horse, the one we saw in Wexler v. Goodman when Saul caused all that trouble with Kevin. We see Joey Dixon's Panasonic hat from Off Brand. We see a painting from Kim's apartment from Smoke. We see some bingo balls, very memorably, from Bingo. And again, that very, very special cap from the tequila bottle, Zafino Ajeño from Switch. And Jamie G, they really, really focused on that bottle cap. You know, Saul had it all these years later, or maybe not all these years later, but definitely a fair bit later in time in that Breaking Bad timeline. But what do you think the show was trying to, what was the message behind showing that?
The one thing that Saul is the man who loves Kim Wexler. That is everything to him in his life. And I think that that's going to be the main, I think that's why Saul continues to live as Gene after he loses everything, is because of Kim Wexler. And I just think they're trying to highlight that above everything, he loves her and always has.
It scares you a little bit, right? Because he has it probably because it's a memento of something that he doesn't have anymore, something that went wrong, a longing, or because looking at his house, he doesn't have a lot of sentimental stuff. Sure, he's got a couple of books and random paintings and stuff like that, but not a lot of personal pictures other than him, with celebrities and that kind of thing. This was the one kind of really personal thing I think that we saw. And really, we didn't see anything else relating to Kim, no pictures of her or anything. And I think someone pointed out that probably wasn't her bra that the person picked up or whatever. So yeah, it's not like we thought like, oh yeah, Kim was the secret wife that he was hiding with the whole time. But I'm inclined to worry about Kim, and this doesn't do anything to alleviate that.
It doesn't. And one other thing I'll say, Magnum Mills, is I think maybe they're trying to point out that represents not just Kim and his love for Kim and him missing Kim, like we've said. It also points out one of the first cons that they ran together. And, that back in the days of going to the country club and doing some role playing, and, that actually symbolizes when they first, started to kind of work together in Slippin' Jimmy world. And I think that's also something to point out here, Magnum Mills.
Yeah, I think a good way to put it is maybe that was when they were at their best together, kind of. Like, you look now, it's almost like they started to come together, and at that point, like, they met almost on equal ground, and now they've almost continued to pass each other, where like you'll even see, later on, where Kim feels like she's acting more like, Saul was when he was Jimmy in the earlier seasons. In all of a sudden now, Saul's kind of pumping the brakes. It looked like he was fully embracing that whole kind of Saul Goodman persona, but after the events of Bagman, it really, I think it shook him a bit. And I think we see that throughout this episode, that he's not necessarily on his game right now.
No, Magnum Mills. And just a couple other thoughts here on the just general cold open. I got to say, bro, I love this. It was not what I expected at all, from just the stunning visual hypnotic trance I got put in from watching the ties slowly fall. What a killer fucking tie selection, number one. Not that I expected anything.
I figured you would love his closet.
I loved his closet.
From a non-woman, I mean, from a dude standpoint, like, he's even got like his ties and pocket squares all organized in their own separate.
Incredible.
It was a fly-ass closet, I would say. Like, that was some crib shit right there.
100%, dude. And I just think it did such
secret
a
room
great
and everything
job
in the closet, right?
Secret room.
And his
the
secret
mirror.
room had a toilet, which was a black toilet, I think. I mean, no expense spared here, it feels like.
No, he was, but I love this because we finally got a glimpse of, like, when Saul was Saul in Breaking Bad, he made a lot of money and had a booming business and was in on all this crazy side illegal shit, stacking cash. This gave you just an idea of how much money he had. But didn't it kind of make it seem like through all that, he still wasn't really happy? And he wasn't even in the scene. It was just like there was a certain sadness about his house. It was amazing. And I loved, like, being able to see, like, inside his house and all the shit he has and how dope it was. But there was a certain sadness about it. And again, that points back to that bottle cap and Kim Wexler and everything else. But I love this opening and the way the camera just kind of slowly took it all the way to that bottle cap falling. And then the sound of the sewer going. I just, the water draining down the storm drain there. I love this open, Magnum Mills. Can't say enough about it. Phenomenal. Not what I expected either.
I will say that I was definitely thrown just a touch when we got the color, because I was really expecting the Gene scene. We won't get into that now. Just, it obviously probably changes up maybe the way we thought the season might be structured or whatever. So it was surprised when you got the color and the ties, because you couldn't quite figure out what it is at first. And then they basically did the whole thing and didn't stop, right down to Saul having the golden toilet. I just want to point out, after really looking at that picture, that was a really poor construction there. Like, it would be very difficult to remain seated on that toilet while reaching for the toilet paper. Just goes to show you, if you have all the money in the world, you still need somebody who actually knows what they're doing to build the thing. And I do think that they kind of deliberately, it was very opulent inside, but if you looked at the outside, it was a lot more regular looking, which makes sense because Saul's a smart guy. While he wants to show that he's rich, he doesn't want to overly make himself a target kind of thing. So, he kept most of his opulence on the inside there, which is a little bit different than kind of the way he approached it in his law practice, where he had it all on the outside.
Yes, he did. Incredible opening scene, Magnum Mills. I'm a fan of it. Just, it surprised me, but it was outstanding. Let's move on to the next scene here.
Yeah, and we're just kind of going to move on to the next plot line here, and we're going to just talk about Nacho. This was a very stressful episode for Nacho. There's a lot of him kind of looking around in the dark and kind of creeping, but really not a ton happens. We saw what we saw from the season 5 finale, lets the assassins in, and then he pretty much takes off, creeps around, and ends up in a motel. And it looks like, everything's going to be okay. Gus has got it back. There's a plan. There's, really going to be okay.
Man, I got to be honest with you, bro. Every single scene Nacho is in, there's one word for it. Intense. It is extremely intense. What a great job this actor does, face expressions, the sweat, the intensity around his scenes. I don't know, buddy. I think Nacho's going to stick around longer than I thought he would, but it's not going to be a fun ride for him.
I think that tracks there. Now, for the record, that's Michael Mando. Been around for a minute. I think I said this before. First saw him in Orphan Black, where he was Big Dick Vic, and he was a real dick. But and I think in that one he had a British accent. So dude is a phenomenal actor. If you've heard him give some interviews and stuff like that, kind of soft spoken. He's been on the Better Call Saul Insider podcast and everything. Seems like a real great dude. Kind of fantastic actor. One of those guys. If I see he's in something, I'm gonna check it out. I guess the one thing is here, do you buy that he, at this point, do you think he is really kind of worried that he's going to get double crossed here? Because he kind of, you can't really read it either way. He's kind of just plays scared, and then he gets to the motel and he's like, okay, I guess.
I think he's not happy that he has to trust somebody that he doesn't really want to, is the best way I would put it. I think he's definitely concerned that this is not going to go in his way. He did something he didn't want to have to do, and now he has to trust somebody that he doesn't really trust. And that's a really tough position to be in. Not that I think he's okay at the motel. I think he's just starting to believe okay, maybe there's a way out of this. Kind
of that, brings us to the Gus Fring portion of the storyline here. And we get a pretty good idea. The whole overview here is that Gus really doesn't believe 100% that Lalo's dead, and he's going to make sure that Nacho takes the fall here before he gives up any information. And we know Gus, he's a chicken man. He is literally one of the sharpest knives in the drawer, and he's the only one who sees through Lalo's deception. But do you think he's making the right play by sacrificing Nacho here?
I think he has to, just because what if something happens and they get to him first, he doesn't trust that Nacho won't give up the goods. And that's just too big of a risk for him to even consider any other option here.
Yeah, and that's going to put him in conflict with Mike and everything. It just, Gus usually, again, he's so smart. He tends to see all the angles here. It kind of surprises me that they didn't have a better plan for Nacho. They didn't have a guy to just take him away and we're going to get you away and just shoot him in the head. They kind of just let him run away on the hopes that he would get to this motel. I mean, maybe they thought he would die, but that still leaves him open to being captured. I don't know, it just bothered me a touch because Gus is usually so good, and this seemed just a little bit of an excuse to kind of have that kind of tense, sequence of him getting to the motel. It was, I enjoyed it and everything like that. Just looking back, zooming in on it, trying to be all right, what's Gus doing here? He's usually so omnipotent almost. He knows everything, it seems like. Remember Breaking Bad? He somehow sniffs out the Walt car bomb with no real way to do so. He's just got that, that Bruce Willis, man, that sixth sense. And I just don't know here. He's got the Lalo thing, but it feels like he's making the short-sighted move to just, throw Nacho under the bus when at least he should have brought him in before doing that.
The other thing that it does from a show's standpoint, from a creative development standpoint, is it forces the rift and eventual bond of Gus and Mike. So, it creates this tension between Mike and Gus, because you got to remember that we're used to Gus knows everything, super kill, has all the right moves, but he also has never doubt Mike Armentrout in his, they're a team, and he has the utmost respect for Mike. Mike handles a lot of shit for him. Mike's just creeping on the come up here with Gus. Gus doesn't fully know Mike's capabilities yet. So this gives them an opportunity from the show development standpoint to allow those two things to come to a head, where obviously we know eventually Gus just completely trusts Mike unequivocally. And it's that's his guy forever, but it's not there yet. So I think that's also part of the thought process around having Nacho on the run, along with, like you said, creating the incredible tension that it does throughout the show.
Yeah, that all really works for me. And I guess the only other question I have is, do you think Gus has any particular reason to believe Lalo's still alive, or is this just him again being so meticulous and attention to detail that, unless basically he can touch his corpse with his own hand or saw him die with his own two eyes, he was going to be skeptical? Or I don't know, he just seems to sniff this out without, I don't know if he had enough reason to.
Dude, it wouldn't surprise me. Here's the tough part about this. Would it really surprise you if Gus had some insider who called him and said, I don't think he's dead. Even just a fraction of doubt, not at all. It wouldn't surprise you. But does the show even have to ever address it? They don't. so
I think it's pure
never
sixth sense because no one really like Lalo makes it a point to like kill the dude who uses the phone or whatever. And I think they even say something like, "Oh yeah, and he's dead, but so are all the guys who were sent to kill him." And Mike's like, "Well, it happens." Yep. You know, it makes enough sense. Just again, just poking a couple of holes here because it's a very good show. So
yeah,
if we don't poke a couple holes in it, all we're going to do is act like, hey, everything is great. And, most things are very, very great. And speaking of very, very great, I think that kind of wraps up Gus. So let's go south the border here and talk about Lalo. I can't get enough. My kind of comp is we've done some other coverage of things, but he is just like, he reminds me a little bit of Ruth Langmore from Ozark because he is just like a force of nature behind this nice smiling veneer with the mustache. And it's just, and even like, he's not a big heavy dude or something, but it's not like he would be so intimidating. But we see in this episode, man, he can handle himself even with the hurt leg and everything. But we see him and he goes to these caretakers. He obviously knew them. They talked about like he paid for this oral surgery and everything. And, he kills them despite just talking nice and everything. I mean, I don't know, man. It's hard to get a read on Lalo. Just kind of, I don't even know. I mean, he's great and everything, but you almost don't, I don't know. It's just, he's just an incredibly interesting character and tough to get a real read on.
He that's spot on, Magnum Mills. He is really, really, really interesting. He's a cold-blooded killer, but so manipulative and charming. I mean, he's essentially everything that they were trying to do with an American Psycho. He's like the Mexican version of American Psycho, right? Like he's sharp dressed, he's charming, he's got bravado, but he is an absolute cold-blooded killer. Is he a psycho killer?
Yeah.
No.
See,
but
he can also relate to
here.
common people and stuff like that.
100%, bro.
He can really. It's just you kind of wonder like
he's the ultimate villain for this show.
Like so this kind of almost like a sociopath where he'd like to be nice to everybody, everything, but as soon as you're kind of in his way or whatever, he can just like. Do you think he really has any remorse or anything?
No, just not at all.
He can't right to operate the way he does. He just has to literally like Amazon they paid all that money for the Michael B. Jordan joint, but really it's Lalo who's without remorse. Tom Clancy.
Yeah, there is no remorse in Lalo. Dude, in this episode, I thought Lalo moved way up for me. I mean, we saw where he was at the end of last episode of season 5. What he accomplishes in this episode really, I think, sets the stage for the entire season of him being, villain number 1. He's bona fide alpha villain, big dick swinging, look out. And this is not going, this may end before the back half of the season, sometime here in the first 7 episodes, but I think he's in this entire first stretch here of 7 episodes. Like he's not going away. I think he's a bona fide villain here for a minute.
Oh, what's ridiculously fascinating is I think everyone will pretty easily agree that Gus Fring was the best villain in the run of Breaking Bad. I don't think anyone's going to argue about that. So Saul, if Mike's on the side of Gus, who do you have to oppose Gus? Like, yeah, you have Saul, but he can't really stand up to Gus Fring. So the key is to create a character who can not only, hold their own with Saul Goodman, but a character who can hold their own with Gus Fring. And they fucking did it.
Yeah, no, shout out to them in their creation of Lalo, which ironically might have been formed from just they needed to do something.
I believe they talked about that. They knew that they had a couple of things they had to do, like Saul had this other divorce or whatever, and that Lalo and Ignacio, because that's who the names he says in the desert when we first meet Saul.
Right. So they had to do something.
That was what they kind of had. Like they
struck gold though.
At least. They didn't have to. They could have, did it like kind of they did the other divorce and kind of do a throwaway gag with it or something. But they chose to actually build the series out around those things, and I just think it's just so terribly interesting that that. And you get a guy like Tony Dalton, who is got completely different energy than Giancarlo Esposito is Gus, but they're very evenly matched. But they're so where Gus is so quiet and intense, and Lalo just appears to be like all surface. He's like, oh man, let's eat tacos and have beers. You'd want to hang out and watch the game with Lalo. Absolutely. Gus would probably be the one in the back helping to do the dishes and stuff. It's just a very weird kind of dichotomy between the two, but it's it absolutely works. And I just can't believe how much I love the character of Lalo.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, dude. I'm with you 100%, man. And I think to not to do a shameless plug, but I'm going to do a shameless plug to our Peaky Blinders podcast, which if you haven't checked out, you should. It's fucking amazing, covering Peaky Blinders. Magnum Mills, I don't think Lalo has any limitations. No limitations at all.
He, it took Tommy Shelby some shit to really maybe get to that point, and it seems that for when you hear kind of Lalo talk when he tells the story to Hector in season 4 or 5, I believe, and you get the idea that he went through some shit when he was younger a little bit, but he was always kind of the even like a black sheep almost in the family business where you're like a cartel. Just a fascinating character. So I'm really hoping that not only does he live through this, that if they do something else in the Breaking Bad universe, like let's get a full out villain series with Lalo. Enough half measures with like the good guy who's kind of morally gray or going bad. No, let's just follow the bad guy the whole time. Let's just go, just deep right in it.
Going deep all the way. Call me Johnny Deep. Just kidding. It's Johnny Depp. Magnum Mills. Let's move on to the dynamic duo of Kim and Saul. There's a fair bit going on here. So let's break this down a little further. First off, how do you feel about Saul being so kind of apprehensive and sheepish around Kim's scheme against Hamlin?
I know like he doesn't have any love lost for the Hammering man there, but it does feel like he doesn't want Kim to go down that road. I don't know. I think just, again, if he's not going to really, I guess maybe in a vacuum, he would do something to Hamlin if he get his money faster, but I don't know if he would go so far as to like ruin the man's like complete career and like leave him unable to practice law. I just think his main apprehension is, I think it's kind of landed where people have kind of, I think even Hamlin said to him, like, look at what you've done to Kim. And I think he's starting to feel maybe a sense of responsibility that, in the Firelands, he's the one who kind of got Kim to break bad. And now she wants to see where her limitations are, where that line is. And it keeps seeming to, move by the day.
It's just, I think he's reluctant because he also, you got to think, man, as much as he's full-grown Saul, he also had been beaten down so much by Chuck that he knows Kim's too good for that shit. Like, she's an incredible, I think he just respects Kim so much, and her, not just her as a person, but her professionally as an attorney. I think he's worried about like Chuck being right and him ruining her career, because I think deep down inside that's a big concern for him. And I think somewhere in there he still hears Chuck being a dick to him and being like, damn, maybe Chuck's right.
I think that makes an incredible amount of sense. And if you really think about it, Kim is like the best of Chuck and the best of Saul, right? She has that kind of the street smarts or whatever, but she's also legally brilliant, just like Chuck was. So she is like the one who could kind of walk in both worlds and maybe be the best of the bunch. And maybe I think Saul, Jimmy, that's really kind of hitting home that, maybe he's like her strength is being able to straddle both, and he doesn't want to drag her all the way over to the dark side, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, and staying on that, Magnum Mills, much like we saw the bottle cap at the beginning in the cold open, the show deliberately lingered on to the bullet riddled coffee mug. I got some thoughts on this, but curious to hear from you on what you think they're trying to say or imply here with that bullet riddled coffee mug and then it going in the trash.
So many metaphorical ways you could go. The idea, like you're throwing out, like she doesn't care anymore about labels or about the bullets, or you could say now, what if she replaces it later on with a, something else, best lawyer in the world or something. I don't know. It just seemed at them, even she's got this whole duffel bag full of cash and she made a beeline for that mug. Like she just had something where I guess it just maybe represented that time in their lives when she really thought she was going to be doing the lawyer thing. Here comes Jimmy. He's going to be kind of doing the lawyer thing too. And she's like, nah, we're not really doing the lawyer thing anymore. We're going to do not quite a Greco thing, but we're going to do something else.
He's doing a Greco thing. Huh. Yeah. Magnum Mills, for me, I think this clearly stated that was a time, that mug represented a time of innocence, a time of moral compass that didn't kind of get off the beaten path at all. Now they're off the beaten path. Kim has proverbially lost her virginity in terms of, committing white collar crime and going outside the law with utilization of her, her job as a lawyer. And Saul is Saul. And I think that kind of symbolized, we're no longer Jimmy and Kim and McGill and, Wexler, attorneys at law. This is now the Kim and Saul show. And that era is gone.
Kind of depressing, right? Because it makes you really worry for Kim's future. I keep coming back to something I said him on our prediction show where like, oh, maybe the reason we don't see Kim in Breaking Bad or whatever is because she's the one who kind of takes the fall for Saul, so to speak. Like she's the one who has to ultimately pay the price. Or maybe, Jimmy just leads her so far down a road that she can't come back from, that she's the one who actually ends up in jail or without a law license or whatever. And maybe the throwing away the mug is the beginning of that. That's like you said, it's the end of one thing where now like no more labels. You don't need to be the second best this or a lawyer even, or maybe she's Robin Hood, maybe she's scheming. She's just, I guess, waiting to get her own cool nickname like Slippin' Jimmy.
Yeah, well, she could be Kimmy the Con. We can think of that.
Kim, dude. She's Killer Kim.
Killer Kim. Love it. She's not exactly Lil Kim, that's for sure. She's big time energy. Love you, Kim Wexler. Magnum Mills, we're still got some Saul to discuss here, bro. We absolutely have to touch on just exactly how big of a slip up it was. Letting the assistant district attorney, like letting them hear you say Lalo, the name slip by Saul. I mean, just how bad of a mess up is this here? Is this a major thing, or could this be really, really, really big deal? Is this nothing? Like, where do you land on this, Magnum Mills? Because it seems like to me it's got the potential of being a massive deal. I mean, slipping up and saying the name Lalo when they're already hot on something being amiss here, that's really bad.
I guess it's all this is, I think, 2003 or 4, so they still had some kind of internet connectivity or whatever. It's not what we have now. I guess the main thing is I doubt Lalo is his given name, but if they have any kind of intelligence sharing or whatever, if you start just kind of like Google like drug dealer Lalo, you should probably, basically, is there a picture of him associated with the name Lalo? You would think they could probably get to that, maybe not in one step. Maybe you got to get the feds involved, the DEA. Maybe that's where you see like Hank Gomez come in.
Yeah,
that would be a good way to tie them in. So probably something like that. I think when I first saw him, like, yeah, maybe that kind of gets them all up in Saul's ass, but it doesn't lead them anywhere. But maybe what it does lead is them to this becoming like a more like a federal kind of thing.
I think that's going to be an ongoing thing. And I think it'll be fun in a way to see Saul learn how to navigate and dance around that pressure. I mean, that's the assistant.
Because he doesn't quite have his fastball in this game. Like he's like in this episode, he's not quite running it 100% here. I definitely think both the events of Bagman and then kind of that final conversation with Kim at the end of season 5, where he's like, "Oh, you wouldn't do something like that," and she's like, "What now?" He gives him the finger guns. I think that really it kind of woke him up, where he would have been about ready to go full Saul. And those kind of, 2 events more or less have at least shaken him enough to really, for the first time, consider what he's doing.
No, absolutely. And you saw that when he goes into immediately runs into an empty courtroom and sits and he's like, shit, I just
that's a mistake that could kill him, really, if it goes the wrong way. It could kill him, and that's not
Kim,
it could be, but that's the hard part. You have no way of knowing. Maybe it's nothing, maybe it's literally the thing that killed you, and he probably has no way of knowing that. So,
and it's not just him now, it's Kim, because he lives with Kim. So I mean,
Lalo definitely knows they're connected after she showed up in jail and then he went to their place after and everything. Yeah, that's Kim is, again, she's in the game now, as Mike said.
She is absolutely in the game. Speaking of her being in the game, that brings us to the dinner scene in the diner between Kim and Saul. I thought it was really interesting to see that Kim might have been the impetus for a lot of the Saul Goodman persona. Like, seeing her like literally coaching him up on how to become Saul Goodman was really freaking cool, dude. I mean, I think it was also one of those things for me, Magnum Mills, with the scene. You see how passionate she is about the work. And I think that also creates like, because she's in there meeting with a kid, she's doing some pro bono public defendant type shit, and she's loving every minute of it. In fact, she even tells him that this was, he's like, man, your day sounds horrible. She's like, it's the best day of my life professionally. You could just see how much she loves it. And that again drives home the fact of like, shit, dude, there's got to be some guilt associated on Saul's part by pulling her into the dark side, so to speak. I mean, I thought a lot happened at this diner scene more than was just on the surface.
Absolutely. I think you saw like the guilt thing last year, because that's what she did when she resigned or whatever. It was kind of after the Bagman thing. She just goes to the district attorney and she's like, give me 20 of your cases, not only like 20 cases, but like 20 of the shit no one wants. Like the dead end, super difficult. Who the hell knows? Like, give me the worst, the heart, because she can do that. She is that good and that awesome. But yeah, she is definitely dealing with a ton of guilt here. And this is, I think, very important because it seems to be the first time she has legitimately embraced the Saul persona. Before, she was the one who was kind of like, And now, not only is she embraced it, she's throwing out suggestions for it that, yeah, we'll see the white caddy with the lawyer up license plate. And we'll see, the flashy suits and all of
the office with
the cathedral like office. Although, you never, the first time we see it, I believe even that the other secretary said behind the bulletproof glass and everything, but you enter his actual office. It has those pillars and the Constitution on the wall. And, he knew a bit about showmanship, certainly, but I think she's, teaching him just again how to even hone his skills even further.
This was really cool. And it also, dude, I don't know, man. I think the show needed just a little bit of like soft love. And I like when you get these quiet moments between Saul and Kim, and you just see how much he's smitten over her. Like he just loves her. And I think it's, it's reciprocated, bro. Like it's a good love story between these two, man. And again, it does make you worry a little bit like, damn, over the course of the next couple of weeks here, we're going to see some shit that's probably not the greatest thing in terms of like, wanting to see just Kim and Jimmy really just be happily ever after. Unfortunately, that's not how it works out.
Yeah, I'm probably the opposite of Bone Crusher here, whereas he is never scared. I am always kind of scared here, and that's not great. And that kind of brings us to the final part of this plot line, which is something we always love. We get a good con job, and this one is a Saul and Kim team up. And they go to the country club there. They do the whatnot. So I just kind of what are your general thoughts on the con job? Where does it kind of rank in your pantheon of Saul cons? And do you think that this overall plan really has any chance of succeeding?
Anytime we get a Saul con job, I'm there for it, no matter how big or small. I thought this one probably falls somewhere right in the middle. I mean, was it cool? Yes. Did I love Saul's competitive drive here to finish? I mean, when Kim sends him that 911 urgent text saying they're on their way back, abort. I mean, he looks at it and he's like, hell no, I'm doing this thing. And, we also see just the classic Saul where things don't go according to plan. He's giving up. And as he's walking away, it hits him and he turns into Saul Goodman and he makes it happen. And I thought that was really cool. It happened actually 2 or 3 times during this whole con where he has to kind of pivot on the fly. The first obviously is when he's getting the tour and Kevin, sees him and calls him out.
I actually thought that they did that deliberately. Like I thought that they knew his schedule, so they timed it when they knew Kevin would be there and he would see him to get that blow up. I assumed that was part of the con.
It may have been.
Because I bet you that Kim
had
met with him before at that country club, I bet, because they work so closely.
That could be. I didn't necessarily think that.
I took it that was part of the plan. Like he totally, because otherwise, what was he? I guess I don't know how he was. I guess maybe when he was getting toward the locker room, he's just going to do it then.
Tour the locker room and asked to use the bathroom and then maybe create a. But yeah, you're right. It kind of worked to create that scene and you might be honest
because this way it got him freedom because like the dudes were just like everyone was just scared of him so no one was going to say shit to him. He could basically have the free run of the place all of a sudden.
Yeah,
that's why cool. Maybe when they're talking about is it too subtle? Is it perfect? Like I don't know. For some reason, I just assumed that because Kim knew Kevin so well that. Like this was all part of the thing and they even worked out to a day where this was all kind of happening at the same time.
Yep. No, very cool. Magnum Mills. Love that insight.
That's how good the writers are. Like I would buy it either way. That's just, testament to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have so much trust that maybe sometimes I read even deeper connections than there are, but just, again, just enjoyed it all. And, just overall, do you think this Pagan Hamlin is a cokehead kind of? You think there's any shot at succeeding?
Dude, at first I was like, there's no way. But then I'm starting to think there's a chance here that this could happen and at least do enough reputational damage to where it gets them kind of where they want to be from it. But it's outlandish. It's a wild thing, but it's so crazy it just might work. Kind of is where I'm at with it. This early on in the season.
One thing I'm just slightly surprised at is like with all their connections or whatever, like they just tilted like a baby powder.
Yeah,
like, really, you couldn't. I don't even know what the denominations are, but it can't cost that much money for that amount of cocaine just to like make it worth it. Because I can see Howard as being the dude like reporting it to the club, be like, "This was in my locker. What the fuck?" If they tested and found out it wasn't drugs, you think that all right, he'd immediately figure out he was being conned. So, just from an overall standpoint, I would have thought they would have taken that extra step to get the the real deal, even if it wasn't your finest Colombian skiing powder or what have you.
No, dude, good point there. I think they were just so betting on the fact that Howard would be so embarrassed by it, and especially because Cliff was there, that he would just immediately throw it away and not make any big of a scene about it, not even associate himself with it. And don't even put it in the universe. Don't even say it, just forget it ever happened kind of thing.
So, and before we kind of finish up here, is that not one of the greatest disguise jobs in the history of television? By Saul there when he had to improvise
with the towels.
I mean, you would honestly realistically haven't been in many locker rooms. You would think you could just kind of it's just rows of lockers. You could just turn the other. I don't know why he had to sit right there. I guess it was kind of a corner, but you could have gone around and he could have still had but I give Odenkirk credit, dude. Good for you. He got butt ass naked.
He got naked as hell.
And that's a dude rule.
But it works, bro.
You don't if another dude's naked, you do not look directly at them in the locker room. It's just
not at all. You're not going to
eye contact. Fine, but eye contact.
Yeah, you're not.
I mean, that's how you should really treat all naked humans, unless you're doing the whatnot. But yeah, just
Yes. And the other thing too is none of them, Howard has never seen Jimmy naked, so it's not like he's going to be like, "Hey, I recognize that dick anywhere." So that
would be fun if he had some random birthmark or something, and that literally became a plot point later on. That's how they figured it out somehow. I mean, that would have been way too much. Think about the people the conspiracy. And I love y'all that do all the theories and stuff. I'm not smart enough to come up with them, but I love reading them. Keep doing what you're doing. But something like that would have led people way down a rabbit hole, I'm pretty sure, which would have been fairly awesome. So I'm almost a little sad it didn't happen now. Unless you have anything else, I think that does it for kind of the bulk of the episode there. So now it's time for our very fun random speculation, rankings, basic nonsense. So JVG, let's start in your neck of the woods. Since how do I say this? You're a person with a nebulous link to the legal profession. Any thoughts on the attorneys in this episode?
Well, I will say Cliff Main has a pretty damn sweet guitar, brother. I mean, if you've got cool shit like that in your office, most clients, they don't even pay attention to the legal mumbo jumbo. Just add some autographed sports memorabilia and they'll sign anything you want.
Yeah, you're really licensed by the bar.
Yeah, I got my license in a bar. Of course so.
I don't think you answered the question that I asked.
Exactly. And that is why I am Jamie G. Esquire V, the attorney. You don't even know what questions you're asking, Magnum Mills.
You know what, man? All right. I'm pretty sure you're wrong, but I'm not 100% sure. You're starting to get on my nerves. You might actually be a fucking lawyer.
Damn straight. I'm the real Eagle Beagle.
Don't you mean legal eagle?
Whatever.
I'm not even going to filibuster here. Let's just move on to one of our favorite segments, usually one of the shortest. There may or may not be a correlation there. Jamie G, what time is it?
Oh yeah, it is time for Mike's Always Right. Pretty simple here, Magnum Mills. We examine the actions of our favorite Mike Ehrmantraut in this episode and ask one simple question: was Mike right?
Well, we saw him. He was doing the thing, watching Kaylee when she was building the marbles, and he was right about how she would have to build it. I think he was right about standing up for Nacho. So I think, as per the usual, Mike's batting 1,000 here.
And there you have it, folks. As usual, Mike is always right. Never doubt the Ehrmantraut.
Never doubt Ehrmantraut, baby. And Jamie G, that makes it Highlander time. That means there can be only one. What was your favorite, moment or line of the episode?
Dude, there was a bunch of good shit in this episode, but I am going to take the easy way out. Some may say I don't agree with that. Okay. But I am going to go with the opening scene. The cold open to me was amazing. It was everything I wanted. It was totally different. It set the tone for the entire season in this doom and gloom scenario of what's to come, and we get to enjoy the ride on the way there, and it fit perfectly. It's like you know what it's like, Magnum Mills? It's like the creators called us right here, Jamie G, Esquire the Fifth, and Magnum Mills, and said, hey guys, you got this kick-ass podcast named Saul Over Soon. We're going to do a cold open that just speaks to Saul Over Soon. And it really did, Magnum Mills. And for that, my friend, my brother, I have to go with that cold open. And what a kick-ass tie collection. I can't say it enough.
Yeah, I mean, that's, it's kind of like I could listen to Jimmy and I could hear Jimmy. I do. When you started to say that for just a second, I thought you were going to talk about how great it was to see Bob Odenkirk get naked there, but good for you. I'm going to go with the little quiet moment at the end of the con when we see Jimmy/Saul get back in the car with Kim, and she starts worrying. She's like, do you think it was too subtle? And he kind of just looked at her and he's like, it was perfect. Because this is him acknowledging that Kim is better than him. He is slipping Jimmy, whatever, but Kim, man, she's as good as the con thing and a much better lawyer. So I think at this point, he is almost sometimes in awe of her and what she can do.
And that just makes him love her even more. Magnum Mills, that brings us to the portion of the episode where we swipe right on our 5-star Sauls. This is basically just a power ranking of characters as the end of each episode here. We'll start at the bottom at our 1-star Saul. We'll work our way up to 5. Only getting 1 star is not the greatest thing in the world, but it is better than being unranked. I'll start us off here, Magnum Mills, with my 1-star Saul. I am going with Nacho. This dude is really in a tough way here. His life is literally could end any second. He is in a spot at the beginning and at the end of this episode where I'm not sure which one's worse. On the run from literally everyone in the enemy territory, including the Federales, or locked in a motel where you may have been double-crossed and you have to pace back and forth and wait to die. Very tough situation for Nacho. He is my 1-star man simply because of his circumstances.
I also have Nacho as my 1-star. Nothing against him. He did his job getting to that motel, but I think he's in a bad spot here. He does not have a lot of hand in the situation, but he's worthy of being ranked. So he's my 1-star. At my 2-star, I have Gus Fring. And even though he didn't manage to kill Lalo, he's smart enough to know that he didn't kill Lalo. Everyone else is falling for it. Gus Fring not falling for the banana in the tailpipe. Jamie G, who's your 2-star Saul?
Well, it's important for everybody in the Saul Over Soon podcast universe. Magnum Mills and I do not share who our 5-star Sauls are prior. Okay, so this is totally live on the spot. I'm finding out for the first time. He's finding out. My 2-star Saul here is also Gus Fring. Okay, and the reason why is because I'm used to seeing Gus in a position of complete control and power. He has executed something that didn't work out the way he wanted it to. He is questioning everything and everyone. He does not buy that Lalo's been killed, but he also doesn't necessarily know that the enemy knows it's him. And so he's in a weird position here, and it's not a position of power the way we're used to seeing Gus, certainly in the Breaking Bad realm.
Nice. Hit me with your 3-star.
My 3-star is going to be my main dude, Mike Ehrmantraut. He's just kind of right in the middle for me. I mean, he's trying to do the right thing and be the stand-up dude that Mike Ehrmantraut is, and also earn the trust of Gus, but he's struggling here a little bit. And he doesn't have it yet. And he's kind of in this limbo period where he knows how to do it, what to do, and when, but he has to prove to the people that are going to make that call that they know that they have that confidence in him. So he's kind of right in the middle there for me. He's not there yet, but he's on his way.
Fair enough. I like that. I actually went with my number 3 is Saul. And this is a little bit of a come up because coming out of season 5, he was just down at my number 1. And I think he gets some hand here, even though he was really failing throughout the episode. And then he made the mistake with the ADA, let Lalo slip. But you kind of saw him, do a little bit of a Stella there, get his groove back, so to speak, during the country club thing, culminating when he just had to take all of his clothes off because, I think at that moment, it's like you've seen them talk about, slipping, Chuck always said, he'll never actually really get in trouble. And you've heard Lalo called him a cockroach, a cucaracha. And yeah, dude, that's just who he is. When his back's against the wall, he figures it out, and he did it. And I think that's going to help him going forward. So I got Jimmy, aka Saul, up on my number 3, and let's go up to our 4-star Saul. And I have Kim Wexler. I believe she's holding firm at number 4 since the last time we did this at the end of season 5. Dude, she's Kim. Does nothing really wrong here. Not quite enough to dethrone my 5-star Saul. But yeah, dude, Kim Wexler is going to generally rank pretty high for me most weeks unless something drastically changes, I feel.
Hard to argue that, Magnum Mills. My 4 is going to be, I kind of did a combo platter here. I'm doing Kim and Saul as my number 4.
Oh.
And the reason why, hear me out, is because they're so amazing together. And now they're kind of, while they're each individually doing their own thing, that's part-time work. That's not really where their heart is. Their heart is in doing this shit together. And we got to see them do kind of their own con together. And they're in unison on this thing. And they're locked for better or worse. And we all know it's probably going to end up worse, but they're together, dude. They're ride or die on this shit. And so they move themselves into my 4-star Saul slot.
I think they share all but maybe one scene together this episode. So I'll let you for this episode. I'll allow it, Your Honor. I believe, before I go too foghorn leghorn with it, I say I will allow that. And who's your 5-star Saul?
My 5-star Saul Magnum Mills is the madman with the killer smile. I'm going Lalo all day, every day. Think about where he ended season 5 and where he was at the end of episode 1, season 6. This dude is in control, has a plan, communicated with Hector. How did that happen, right? I mean, now we know that in the future, he basically came up with this thing with saying the alphabet and spelling it out. I mean, it was just this dude literally murdered a nice family that he knew to protect himself. I mean, he's just you got to believe that he's gonna be hell on wheels here for a minute, and he's clearly my 5-star Saul this episode.
Yeah, same. I have Lalo up top. I believe he was at the my 5-star Saul coming out of season 5. Nothing changes here. He hate him, love him. He's doing what he needs to do to get the job done. And, he's like you said, a fucking force of nature. So yeah, dude, I got Lalo as my 5-star dude, my 5-star Saul. And that brings us to the part of the episode where we give this thing some dots and squiggles. All right, let's not use that grading system. Let's go with a less complicated grading system. We'll go 1 to 10. 1's the worst, 10's the best, and we're going to give them out in denominations of pinky rings. Yeah, because we have Mark. So Jamie, scale 1 to 10, how many pinky rings are you giving to Wine and Roses?
Doesn't Saul just rock that shit so good though with that pinky ring game? He's right up there with Tony Soprano wearing a pinky ring, bro. He rocks it real good. For me, Magnum Mills, I had to really try to not just give this thing 9.8. I mean, it's really good for me. I'm giving this thing a solid 9.5 here. Pinky rings all day. Someone drop that pinky ring woo beat real quick, because all day, every day, 9.5 pinky rings for me, baby.
Oof, man, that's I definitely liked the episode. There wasn't a ton I disliked. Like I said, I had a couple little quibbles maybe with Gus's logic and stuff like that. I'm gonna go with 8.8 out of 10. 8.8 pinky rings. It's not quite enough to cover all of your fingers, but you've got basically 9 of them covered. You're doing solid. Plus, I want to have some room for growth here. This is just the first episode. It was great. But I do, I don't want to be grading on a curve here, so to speak, because I think, it's all such a good show. You're already by nature grading on a curve a little bit. And so I don't want to overreact because I like this episode very much. But ultimately, I want the season to continue to get better.
Absolutely. And I have a feeling it will. I know I started high, but bro, this episode was just, man, this show's just firing on all cylinders. It was all season 5, and then boom, they come out with a banger. Let's just do a couple of quick things before we get out of here, Magnum Mills. Let's do a few gun to your Johnson, quick answers, quick questions. And let's just I'm just going to press this thing up against your nub there. And I don't want to squeeze, so answer quick. Is Nacho still alive at the end of episode 7?
Ooh, so at the end of like part 1 here of the final season, yes, I'm going with. How about you?
I am saying yes, he is. Is the Hamlin a cokehead plotline? How we get to see Jesse Pinkman in the season? Yes or no?
Holy shit. Actually, yes.
I'm going to say no. We see Jesse in another way. And last but not least, what is the proof that Lalo is heading back into Mexico for? He is adamant that he has proof. What is it?
I don't even know that there's proof. Maybe he's going to go. Remember, like when Mike did the convalescence thing at that place where Gus knew people? Maybe he's going to go get some hostages or something and then use that to get proof. Otherwise, I honestly have no idea.
I think the proof is Nacho.
Well, yeah, I mean, all right. I thought that was a little bit too obvious, but okay. Yeah, I mean, that's a perfectly fair answer. That was, so obvious I didn't even consider it. I thought that's what the, but yeah, that's perfectly fair.
Thank you, Magnum Mills. Again, I don't want to take this into
I don't think
litigation.
you were just going there to get some of that good Mexican Coke with the real sugar. I don't think that was what was going on.
Dude, this was fun. I think that wraps this up. Why don't you tell us what is on tap next for Saul Over Soon?
Well, we'll be covering episode 2 of season 6 titled Carrot and Stick, which also aired on April 18th. Our coverage of that episode is coming up next. Wherever you're checking us out, we'll literally start playing at the end of this episode.
Thanks again for checking out Saul Over Soon, our podcast covering the amazing show Better Call Saul. We really appreciate it. We appreciate you. Please remember to like and subscribe on YouTube. Rate, comment the podcast. That doesn't mean a ton to you, but baby, we love it. It helps us out a ton. We really appreciate it. Keep doing it. We'll keep doing it. And we could do this every weekend. Magnum Mills, tell these fine people where they can find all of our content. That is absolutely FREE.
Thank you, sir. Like the man said, we're Saul Over Soon. Find us on your favorite podcast platform. On social media, it's Saul Over Soon. And you can send your feedback to sauloversoon@gmail.com. We're from the Joe Blow Football Show, who you can find at joeblowfootballshow.com and on social media at Joe Blow Show. We continue to cover It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, because even if it's not always sunny in Philadelphia, it's always funny at Patty's Pub. On our show/podcast, Nightpod Cometh. Find us on your favorite podcast platform and on social media at Nightpod Cometh. And we are just about to cover the final 7 episodes of the show Ozark from Netflix with the Ozark Podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast platform and on social media at Ozark Podcast. Thanks again for checking us out. I'm Magnum Mills. He's Jamie G. And please remember to buckle up, because you're in the game now.
It's Saul Over Soon. We'll see you next week covering the next episode, Carrot and Stick. And I won't even wait till next week. You'll see it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
This has been Saul Over Soon, a Better Call Saul podcast. This show is for entertainment purposes only. We are in no way affiliated with Better Call Saul, AMC, Sony Pictures Television, Netflix, or any other production company or association. The views here are those of the hosts only and do not represent any other entity. Thanks again for checking us out, and stay tuned because it's Saul Over Soon.